Hello, and welcome back to Sunday Coffee, the video series where I talk about games, movies, TV shows, or things that were on my mind in the previous week. This video, we are focusing on Quake 4. Quake is a game that I've always heard so many things about. The first Quake came after one of my favorite games of all time, Doom, but as a kid I never owned Quake. It wasn't until many years later that I was able to play the original, and still to this day I have not even found the time to complete it, or even beat most of the levels at that point. But anyway, I still have always heard a lot of good things about it. One of the things that I've heard was that every game in the Quake series is good, but all of them are completely different. They're all first-person shooters, as id Software has always been a master at the genre, but every Quake is still different. Several years ago, when GameStop was discontinuing all their 360 games, I was able to pick Quake 4 up for under $5. I thought, I'll have the time at some point to play this game. Little did I know that some point happened 4 years later. So, let us jump right in. First off, the first impressions are good. Decent quality, nice graphics, low loading times, until I realized I could not skip the cutscenes. Okay, annoying, but not a deal breaker. The button layout goes against every other shooter I've ever seen who chooses B as the action button instead of A. I don't know, but oh well. Again, annoying, but every game requires some kind of a learning curve with their button scheme. Not that big of a deal. When you finally drop down and get a weapon, you are greeted by a medic who heals you. This introduces the mechanics of the game and healing stations. And to be honest, I've never been a fan of the requiring teamwork mechanic that seems to be introduced into every single first-person shooter game since Call of Duty started it. Health packs work just as well and do not handicap the gameplay. Keeping someone alive is challenging, I suppose, but having a 100% guaranteed potion bank makes combat feel cheap. Speaking of combat, either the aliens in this game are the spongiest bullet sponges that ever sponged,
I'm absorbing his blows like I was made of some kind of spongy material,
or bullets that the Marines have are made of cotton candy.
This is a piece of crap anyhow.
I feel like it is fair to compare this game to Doom 3 because, well, it's made by the same people at roughly the same time. Doom 3, when you shoot something, you knew you shot it. In Quake 4, when you shoot something, you have to shoot it again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and my goodness, is this the first enemy? Why has the human race not been extinct yet? Our weapons are awful. After you fight your way through a few enemies, you enter a room that has several Marines just laying around, and one of them says, "Hey, you know that medic you met at the beginning? Yeah, I want you to go back through all the rooms you just cleared, get him and transport him back here." And that starts the series of level backtracks that made me quit the game. It is one thing to pad out the game with fetch quests, if fetch quests are side content. But no, this game, in every level I played, which I think was 5, I'm counting the loading screens as levels. I would assume that a loading screen means a new level, but with every loading screen or level that I played, you had backtrack quest. This takes you through some rooms, shooting enemies, and then having you transport right back through those rooms again.
Take the shotgun.
New weapons are also not earned. You gain new weapons at the beginning of each new stage. All enemies disappeared when killed, which is fine, but their weapons and ammo disappear as well. Also, like, they're not really there. That could also account for why there's so much backtracking. Are we reliving a world in our mind? Retelling an event to get our story right before we testify? Possibly in a dream, knowing that our weapons are useless because we've already lost? Are we under hypnosis? Do we know the outcome of the story before we even start? But sadly, I never found this out. The game was so poorly executed that I ended up quitting 5 levels in. I later found out that it was only about a sixth of the way through the game, so maybe the game gets better, but I don't know. Possibly it does get better, but frankly, I didn't have time or patience to be able to pick it back up. Didn't grab my interest or keep me entertained. In fact, most of the time I kept getting confused and aggravated. This game could have been greatly improved by adding a couple features. First would be the inclusion of a map, even if it was just something as simple as showing you where you've been. There is no map in this game, or at least in the 360 version that I've played. And when you are wandering around a maze-like level, you need to backtrack, and then front track, and then side track. It gets very confusing. The game could also be aided by navigation pointers. In most games, I think these are way overdone, to the point to where the player feels like they are being led by the hand. But in this game, they could have at least made a marker over top the main objective, or only appear after 5 minutes of walking into the same dead-end wall. Finally, I think the game could use the ability to adjust the brightness. This game is dark, as in it's like hard to see, especially when it is daylight in the real world and you are playing the game in a pitch black room with no other electronics on. It was so difficult to see, I ended up keeping the flashlight on even when I was in the daylit rooms. Overall, I would say this game is worth about what I paid for it, $5. I wouldn't pay more. But I also don't think I gave it a fair shot either. By the time I turned off the game, I was ready to play a game that was actually fun, if that tells you anything. So that was my review and thoughts on Quake 4, and I really wanted to like this game because I really like id Software, and I really liked Doom 3. It wasn't as good as the other Dooms in my opinion, but it was still a good game. They have a good track record, but overall, I'm just not impressed with this one. Alright, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Sunday Coffee. If you have any questions for me, leave a comment down below. Go ahead, like, subscribe to the video. Thanks guys, have a good rest of your day.